Okay, we're recording.
Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, November 18th, 2025. This is a joint committee meeting of two subcommittees, policy and curriculum. And we are going to look at the competency, I don't know what that one, determination as required by the state. I believe that we have to submit our requirements by end of December.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. Okay, and we will be taking this to the full committee for a vote, but this is a draft and our first presentation. So who is going to lead here in this?
I think Robin is batting lead off.
Yeah, so I'm going to start just to
right
frame it. So the competency determination, so what we're really looking at in terms of this policy is, as you remember, the 10th grade MCAS tests in science, ELA, and math were the former measure for competency. So students earning a passing score on that test in 10th grade, along with our local graduation requirements. So those two things together certify a student for graduation at the end of their time at BHS. So with the vote that happened last spring, the MCAS was removed as the measure for competency determination, and then it became up to each school system to create a policy to determine competency. So we still have these two measures that have to be in place: competency determination, which really assures that any student graduating from a Massachusetts high school has had completed coursework, including assessment of that coursework, that shows that they have met the minimum, they have met the standards for 10th grade, ELA, math, science, and now US history is the most recent add-in, that course in US history for high school students. And local graduation requirements are still in place. So what we're bringing before you today is what we are determining as our measure of competency within the Brookline Public Schools. And I would also frame that in terms of framing the policy and the language of the policy. A lot of it comes from the MASC model policy, right? And we're inserting the coursework that we would use and some of the measures that we would use and the procedures that we would use in terms of if there's an appeal or for students who are late arriving to the district or some of our other populations. So that's what you're going to be seeing today. So I think I'm handing it. I don't know if there's any questions for that, or if I can hand it to Hal, who's going to present the actual draft policy.
Robin, I thought I would just quickly, just before we kick it over to Hal, who's done competency determination work for the public schools of Brookline and Brookline High for many years. I think just one thing I wanted to emphasize, in addition to agreeing with Robin, is that in advance of this meeting, we met with our EL director, Mindy Paulo. We met with our new guidance coordinator, school counseling coordinator, Alexia Thomas. And with Robin Fabiano, our director of special ed. You're going to hear policy tonight. We want to make sure we have the procedures in place to make sure that we're enacting this well. And so policy is tonight, and then we can share more about the procedures that we need to have in place to make sure we're appropriately flagging kids who might not be meeting competency determination, and then working with students, families, administrators. So Hal, if you're up for it, I think this is you. Hal, one of the few times in your life you've been described as muted in your response.
Okay. All right. I picked that up as well. So this is our draft of the competency determination, and as Robin noted, this comes largely from the MASC and also comes essentially from the state. The state ran a webinar over the summer, and whereas at first it was sort of a Wild West situation where people weren't sure exactly what standards were going to be required, or if the state was going to require anything, then the state came through with several things that they strongly suggested would be parts of the policy, and all of that is reflected in what you're going to see tonight. So as Robin noted, it's the four areas now: the English language, essentially 2 years of English language, 2 years of math, specifically Algebra 1 and Geometry. Algebra 1 is a course in Brookline that's taught in the 8th grade. That contingency was addressed by DESE, that you certainly can use the 8th grade Algebra 1 or equivalent as one of the 2 years of mathematics that's required. 1 year of science, and this begins with the current junior class, 1 year of U.S. history. So all of these things, of course, are kids that are classes that Brookline High School students are taking. They're a subset of the much larger graduation requirements. And for most kids, these would be classes that they would be taking and have completed and would have earned their local CD by the end of the sophomore year. You'll see here that we've listed out the specific courses that students would be taking that would qualify. These include the Responsive Literature and the Humanities courses in the 9th grade, our English 1 courses for special education, Word Lit, Future Word Lit, Real Word Lit, the typical sophomore year courses, along with the English 2 courses. Mathematics, as we said, the 8th grade equivalent or our version of Algebra 1. We have a handful of students every year who come in who have not taken Algebra 1. They're coming from a different school system or for any number of reasons, and they would be taking our Algebra 1 course and then a geometry, or the other way around. Sometimes they could take geometry first and then take the Algebra 1 course in the sophomore year. Science, any number of the science courses that we offer, the physics courses, chemistry, bio, the applied science courses, and those are also pegged to the same standard. The applied science 1050 is the physics course, the 2050 is the chemistry course, the 3050 is the biology course. And finally, as mentioned specifically for the class of 27, but certainly this is a course that everybody will be taking anyway, one version of our U.S. history. That could be the American Studies program, that could be U.S. history, that could be AP U.S. history, it could be any one of those courses that would satisfy the standards for U.S. history.
We have a couple of hands raised. Does it make sense to stop now before we get into the next sections and talk about, are they questions specific to the coursework?
Sure. Andy, what do you got?
Yeah, thanks. So our students who are enrolled in some of the special programs, are these, does this list include all the courses that they would naturally be taking sort of on their path toward satisfying our graduation requirements?
It depends on which special programs you're talking about. So we'll get to that. That's still coming up. Students with disabilities, as you see, is the next section. So,
well, I'm thinking, for example, of SWS or any number of programs, not necessarily for students with disabilities.
Right.
The coursework might be unorthodox and doesn't fall under necessarily these traditional course catalog numbers.
Yes. So the course catalog numbers are meant to be representative, but certainly any other course that is meeting the standard, if you're taking the SWS version of U.S. history or the ACE version of U.S. history, certainly that would count.
We might do well to be explicit about that and list them out, just so that there's no question that as long as you're taking a course that meets the standards, it doesn't have to be one of the listed ones here.
Right. Good. That's a good point.
Thanks.
Sarah?
You obviously have such a knowledge of these students and of this, what happens in the building. So I really don't have anything for you because I just don't have the same understanding you have. I'm really reliant on you for your evaluation of things and to tell us that. So in terms of, are you happy with this? Who was the type of student you were thinking of? Do you think that this will be a hurdle for somebody? Will this be an encouragement? Where's your evaluation of this document fall?
It's a really good question. I would say ultimately it's probably a lower bar just because of some kids have such stress and anxiety around testing and not having to sit for that test, and instead being in a course where they have the teacher and have supports necessary in certain cases. It should be, I would imagine, at the end of the sophomore year, I will be sending out fewer letters than I have in the past saying, you need to work now on retaking this exam. So, or you need to work on retaking this coursework over the next 2 years in order to satisfy the competency determination. So, you know, it's
Super helpful.
probably
Thank you.
yeah, it's probably a slightly lower bar. You know, then again, there are kids who struggle sometimes, and it takes them an extra year to get some of those credits. So, but again, this is really a minimum standard of what you'd expect a high school student to have, and I would expect that almost all of our students will be able to pass this without too much difficulty.
Hal, I might add, and Sarah, it's a really good question. I think students that we would be concerned about are kids who come to us with interrupted or limited formal education. And so trying to figure out Algebra 1 is a good example where the overwhelming majority of kids take that in 9th grade and have taken Algebra 1 in 8th grade within the public schools of Brookline. But we then sometimes find kids who have that need 9th, 10th, 11th, sometimes even 12th to go back and take Algebra 1. And just to get a sense of the scale, there are currently 22 students enrolled in Algebra 1 at Brookline High School. So we think about some of our EL students and some of our students with disabilities in terms of just wanting to make sure that we're identifying those students and helping them meet the competency determination.
Great.
Mariah?
Thank you. Maybe I missed this, but I'm not sure. When does the competency assessment take place? Is this at the end of their senior year, at the end of their sophomore year? Like, when are you deciding this?
Well, there'll be a break-in period, obviously, since we'll be passing it. As soon as the school committee passes it for this year, we will then go through and make sure that students have vetted it. We have already warned guidance counselors over the summer that this is coming. These are the courses that we expect to be on this list. Make sure that any kid on your register as a senior for this year has satisfied this requirement and or put them into those classes for senior year if necessary. So we've done that part of the back work, but we haven't issued a CD yet because we don't have the policy. So we'll have to do it for the seniors immediately. We'll do it for the juniors shortly thereafter. And then following that, I would assume this would be an end of year summertime after the sophomore year. And then it would become sort of a process analogous to what I was alluding to before. When we would get the reports of MCAS, I would insert a letter saying, congratulations, you've satisfied competency determination. It's one step on your journey to a high school diploma, and we congratulate you. And it's a little moment, hooray, or wonderful, you passed 2 out of 3, but we need you to get extra help in science. Mr. Weiser, or now Ms. Brown's going to contact you about that bio that you're taking this year and setting you up for the bio MCAS. That's the letter we used to send. Now we'll send a similar letter saying, congratulations, you satisfied, or you're doing great. You need that one more course. You got to make up that math credit from freshman year, or the physics credit, whatever it is. So I imagine it'll become it will become a process like that following the completion of the sophomore year.
Okay.
So
I think go ahead.
Mariah, can I just interject for a second? Our obligation has always been, as Hal's alluding to, that if a student doesn't pass the in the case of MCAS, it was a test given at a particular moment in time, that we then had to create a plan for that student and work with that student to help them move toward competency by taking it again at a different date, and the support in between. I think what you're asking about is where's the assessment, and the assessment is actually embedded.
No, that's not
coursework.
what I'm asking. That's not what I'm asking. I think
Okay.
Hal answered my question, which was
Okay.
essentially in the steady state, this process will occur at the end of sophomore year. And then essentially, just like with MCAS, which you're talking about, like basically people have junior year and hopefully not senior year to sort of get through the process if they didn't pass it successfully at the end of, because that's not written here, I don't think, but it's helpful to understand that that is your plan, is that this all sort of happens in the same sort of time frame that it would for students.
Right.
And so I just find that helpful to understand, because I think as a lay reader of the policy, if you come along and you read this, you say, wait, Brookline only expects their graduating students to have 2 years of blah, blah, blah. But the point is that this is a point in time registry at the end of sophomore year, which also I don't think is alluded to at all. And so it makes it look like we have very low standards when really these are point in time standards for students completing their second year and possibly needing some catch up after
No,
that.
that's super
So,
helpful feedback for the
yeah.
draft, and we certainly could add that in to clarify it for
I think it
people
is, I think
read
it
it.
is
Yeah.
helpful.
I think
Agreed.
it might be helpful to just, I mean, within the policy, understand that, and maybe this is at the beginning, again, we're using the draft language from MASC. The competency determination is not the graduation requirement. It is a piece of the larger, of like, it's a graduation requirement for all Massachusetts students. And it is the complement, part of the complement of the full graduation requirements of the Brookline Public
Yes,
Schools.
and I don't
So
think it
there are
says
two
that,
things
or at least
together.
not
So
clearly, right?
yeah.
And then the last thing I wanted to say is because this is policy, as opposed to your actual, what you're going to actually do, I would be zooming out and not including things like specific courses, specific course numbers. It's just going to get outdated. And so I don't think you necessarily need that. And I think to Andy's point earlier, it implies, at least the way it's written now, that those are the exclusive things to pass. And I think in the policy, you probably want to be a little bit less explicit and give yourself latitude to be able to thus flex around whatever your current course numbers or whatever you think is right.
The
So I
MASC draft policy basically requests that districts list specifically the courses that will satisfy the requirements.
but we don't have to do that.
We don't have
do
to follow that, but I disagree with you in this case. I think we need clarity. Like everyone needs to be able to pick this up and see exactly what the requirements are. So,
But what happens if MA 1020 turns into 1020 something else in a year? We're gonna have to revise that over and over. Why
I
can't
think
it
so.
say algebra 1 and geometry?
Otherwise, there's just too much unclarity over exactly which courses count. That no one's going to go and look up like the actual, state standards and then look at the syllabus and ask themselves whether the course fulfills it. Like we need to list it out for the community.
Hello.
Yeah, Bella wants to say something. Bella.
Thank you. So I understand Mariah's point. Typically there doesn't exist a subcommittee like the subcommittee or the curriculum subcommittee as it does in Brookline. So this requirement to the school districts is that we have to come up with we have to submit something that's been approved by the end of December. But when they gave us that requirement, they then later announced, DESE being that they were examining new requirements. So that makes us hesitant to really be creative with this. It makes us feel like, okay, why don't we do something as we're required to do? And I think for families, they kind of need to know exactly what they have to take to meet the minimum competency. But this isn't like a regular policy review as we understand it going through the Brookline subcommittees. This is the state requirement they're making us submit. And it makes sense because these subcommittees do exist here in Brookline to put it forth through you. But I understand, Mariah, your point, but this isn't like this is a requirement the state is making us do, and it's not like a typical policy that we're drafting. So I understand your point, but this is
so this is, just so I'm clear, this is not the policy. This is literally the document that everyone's going to use. In that case, I retract what I said.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes,
That's
and
helpful.
it's just unusual because it makes sense to go through these subcommittees, but it's not a policy. It's what we need to submit for the state.
Suzanne?
Yeah, there's two things. One is I think that they're under American history or not. Yeah, under history, I think there's a typo. It's in that it says earn full credit for the mathematics course as listed above. So I think you meant.
I thought, oh yeah, there it is. I see it. Yep.
Okay.
I thought I had that. I saw that earlier today in the science course. It had the same thing. So yeah. Okay. Thank you. We'll fix that.
Yep. And then the other thing, maybe it muddies the water again, but if a student comes from another school and they've had Algebra 1, if they have a passing grade on that you would just assume that they've met that requirement. Right. They don't have to take another test or anything.
Correct.
Okay.
We would, if they're coming from another Massachusetts school, for sure.
Yeah,
You know, there'll be a transcript review. So
okay.
someone could come in we get a lot of kids in from foreign schools, and the course names are in translation and it's hard to get descriptions. So I can imagine there'd be cases where we'd be questioning and we'd be doing math, tests like we would with anybody to determine what course a kid should be taking.
Okay.
And that'll really be the determinant as to whether or not the child has met the requirement when they come in.
So the assessments they take is just the end of the year, end of the course test. So they could take it first year, sophomore year, junior year, depending on when they take the course. Is that correct?
You lost me with the assessment part of that. The requirement is that they pass the entire course. It's not just a single assessment within the course.
Okay, so but
or
if they have
end of year assessment.
If they have a passing grade,
yes,
and a subject, then that would assume, and if they did that here at Brookline, we would assume that they have passed whatever it is they needed to pass, so they get credit for that, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And they may do it after, they would do it after as part of that course. So whenever they take that course, that's when they would do it. That's when they complete the requirements.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
And there's big talk, though I don't think it's gone very far, about courses having the same courses with different teachers having similar assessments or the same assessments. We aren't doing that at this point, are we?
Not across the board. I mean, thank you, Suzanne, for mentioning that. We're certainly engaged in common assessment work. And I think in some subject areas, you have similar or same common assessments, in particular in science and in math. But we're still very much in process on that.
And that's not required by this DESE.
No.
No. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Carolyn.
Thanks. And I'm going to expose my, I don't know, free range parenting. You would think I would know the answer to this about Algebra 1 by now. Is Algebra 1 a BHS course, or I'm a little confused about the reference to 8th grade?
Algebra 1 is typically a course, and the skills, the state frameworks for Algebra 1 are covered by the 8th grade math curriculum. So students in Brookline would be taking that course and the required skills in 8th grade.
Okay.
But I was going to say, to answer your question, Caroline, they're actually high school standards. So the Algebra 1 course has to be aligned to the high school standards for Algebra 1. And in Massachusetts, many schools offer both grade 8 math to the 8th grade standards and Algebra 1 as options for students. It just happens in Brookline that most students will take it as an 8th grader, and we have allowance under the way that DESE's framed this to accept that as long as it's aligned to the high school standards. So where, like Hal alluded to earlier, if you have a student who's not coming from a Massachusetts school, you'd want to make sure that Algebra 1 experiences, even if it's labeled Algebra 1, is actually aligned to what the expectations would be for Massachusetts high schools.
Do we call it Algebra 1 in 8th grade in Brookline? Or just math?
I think we might just call it math.
I think we call it math. But to your earlier question, Carolyn, we do have an Algebra 1 course, but it's for a very small percentage of students.
Typically running two sections a year, 25 students between the two of them, typically tops, maybe 30 occasional years, but 2 small sections usually of that course.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Sure. Jesse?
Yeah, thanks, Hal. To Andy's question about different programs that BHS might have, and how do you cover the terminology about course offerings, and to Bella's point that this is something that DESE's asking for, and it sort of need to stay close to the boilerplate. I was just going to point out that in your table at the bottom of page 1, under coursework requirements, in each of the middle cells, you do say the equivalent of. And so if this was being used in Lexington, or this is being used in, Plymouth, same thing, it's the equivalent of. And so the fact that you put the specifics down at the bottom are interesting for BHS, but in terms of any district that would use like everything but that, this equivalent word that you have in each of the rows would cover, equivalent programs, similar courses that are used by students across the school. So I think
Right.
that would cover it cleanly as well.
For
Thanks.
sure. And DESE over the summer in their call stressed that they were really leaving the schools and leaving the curriculum coordinators or equivalent positions with the authority to make that determination of what courses fulfilled that standard.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I don't see any other questions. Let me just go through the rest. There are some other contingencies we cover. We have a section here about students with disabilities and some of the out of district placements. And again, in that case, there's going to be an IEP team and a transition team that would be making the determination about about competency. EL is a special case, of course, and this is, as Anthony mentioned, we had Mindy on the call with us the other day, and we would be expecting students to reach the level of EL3 for the 2 years of English taken and reaching the level of EL3 for the English portion of their learning. There's also some other courses that we have. There's an EL course in US history. There's EL courses in science that would also qualify for students. There's a special contingency here for students who arrive late, and this essentially involves transcript reviews, guidance counselor, registrar, guidance coordinator, and then ultimately I would make the determination that that the review of the transcript satisfies what we're looking for, and or would help to create the plan, or the guidance counselor would create the plan, and I would approve the plan for what courses we would want the student to take, 11th grade, 12th grade, or just in 12th grade, whatever it is, to satisfy the requirement. We have notes here about an appeals process, which is fairly straightforward. And then there is also an interesting note at the end. This was part of the state policy when the DESE changes, that this now essentially undoes any student that would have been previously denied graduation solely because of MCAS. So any student from 2003 to 2024 who passed all their courses but had not passed MCAS, or is in that situation, now is eligible to have a review. Process is outlined here that could determine whether that student is entitled now retroactively to a Brookline High School diploma. Andy.
Yeah, thanks. Can you talk a little bit about why EL level 3 is the level that you're setting? So this is the WIDA level 3, so-called developing.
Yeah, and getting into that. So I'm sorry. No, that might be a little confusing. This is the EL3 course.
Oh,
we have
okay.
the three.
I'm sorry. So I was thinking of
course.
WIDA level 3, which is not a terribly high level of proficiency. So
No.
hence
Thank
the
you.
question.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'll clarify that in the language here. No, that's the specific course that we're talking about. We would want to see a student, and this would be the level that a student would have had to have attained most likely in order to pass the MCAS exams previously.
I see.
So, the student a student who's struggling in EL1 is unlikely to have met the other parts of the graduation requirement in terms of credits. But for most of our EL students, it is a nice progression where they come in. Maybe they're starting in EL1, but they're moving up to that EL 3000 class really by junior year or senior year. And that's the standard of what we would want to see, 2 years leading to that course. It's a slightly different way of wording it for them, but that would be what we would see as a necessary course for the EL student.
Great, thanks. It was my misunderstanding that this was the WIDA level. Yeah.
Right. Mariah.
Thanks. Andy's question just makes me think, why doesn't this have the same level of specificity that the other things require in terms of course numbers? But you don't have to answer that. It just made me think of it.
I can answer it. We were just trying to match what we got from the mass superintendents.
Okay. Then my two questions are, where is this going to go if it's not policy? Is it going to go in the BHS handbook? Where does this live? Is an official document?
I think it has a policy number from MASC, like that's a consistent, so it does live in the policy.
So it's a policy that doesn't live in is not a policy. Okay.
Can we come back to this later after we've discussed the substance, Mariah? I had some thoughts on this.
And then my next question is, can you just clarify for me, maybe you said it and I missed it, why is US history, which I thought was a junior year class, but I guess maybe it's not, getting added into this with sophomore?
You're right. It is a junior year course. You're absolutely right. So this starting for the class of 27, which would be the current sophomores, this would actually push everything back to the junior year.
So how are you going to do the competency determination at the end of sophomore year if you haven't finished?
We as we do now. So again, we can't make the full determination. You're absolutely right. That was just an error on my part. So yes, we'll do the full determination at the end of the junior year. Then we will continue to issue letters as we have in the past about the status that they have toward competency after the sophomore year.
Got it. And then this was the typo that Suzanne flagged, right? The mathematics from the history paragraph. That was okay. Thanks.
Yep. Anthony.
Sorry, one thing I should have caught before, just the nomenclature on late enrolling students rather than guidance counselor and guidance coordinator. I'd love it if we could use school counselor and coordinator of school counseling, just updating the language we use for those titles.
Jesse.
Thank you. First of all, just a typo for you. You're right. You're right there. Last sentence of students with disabilities.
Yep.
The must be has like an underline between must be just for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it. Yep.
All right. So, or maybe it's part of the draft, something. I don't know. It's some weird thing.
Yep.
So maybe it's with the draft overlay. I don't know. But anyway, just to have it in mind. Second thing to this idea about policy that Mariah was mentioning, she sounded, and I am too, skeptical about this not being a policy. It probably should be. If I look at the MASC for a bunch of districts and I was scrolling through, there's IKFE, competency determination policy, in different districts. And it's in reading through it while you were talking about these, they're pretty similar. They don't have, not all the districts have all the course numbers, but they have the course categories. Okay, so I'm concerned as and I agree with Mariah, and I'm not sure I agree with Robin that this is a policy in the MASC manual for, like, I don't know, 15 districts I was scrolling through. And if it is a policy, then it is. If it's a policy, then it lives in the policy manual. And if there's additional information that the high school or the district and OTL provide to parents or an online document in the handbook about details about it, protocols and practices, that's fine. But it reads to me very much like a policy, and it is probably based on what I thought we were going to be doing. Will be living in the policy manual. So I mean,
I would agree with you, Jesse, that it is a policy. I mean, it was put out by MASC. It has an MASC number, so I would assume that it would live there. I think it's a little bit different in the way that we've been asked to create it, I think, but I would agree with you that it is a school committee policy.
Okay, yeah. So the question, so I think to Mariah's question, Robin, the inclusion of the actual course numbers as compared to, I'm looking at Danvers, for example, right now, they have ELA 9, ELA 10, Algebra 1, Geometry, Biology, US History 1, but they don't have all the course numbers. And so I think that's where I mean, if the rest of the team is okay with that, I think if we simplified it by taking the numbers out, because it's a whole process every time we have to go through policy subcommittee, if anything changes, anything. So you would
deny us this opportunity to come and sit with you in the afternoon, Jesse?
We got plenty to do, man. You could come help us, but I'm just saying is that this particular one could probably be smoother from a policy manual's perspective without all the details of the policy of the course numbers. And to Anthony's point earlier, somewhere between guidance counselors and the student handbook, I'm imagining, Hal, since you have plenty of time, a process flow that provides the parents and students with the flow to get to competency, right? So these are the courses and these things. So I would recommend removing the course numbers and just leaving the titles, the categories. That'll make it more in line with what MASC is showing district by district as well.
And I would agree with you that I think we can remove the course numbers. What we do need to make sure is if any of our courses have unique names that meet the requirements. So like if you think about English 1, like if any of our first year English courses have a specific name, we should include the name, even if it's offered at multiple levels. So I think that would meet the requirements. So
That makes sense.
I think that that's the only place where I would kind of split it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. Sure.
Robin, do you mind repeating that again? What was it you said?
So for instance, you know, like what Jesse referred to, something like English 1 or English, say it was labeled English 9, it might be in different high schools or things like that, might be offered at multiple levels, right? Like, so the same course, but maybe it's at an honors level and it's at a college prep level or whatever it is. So having the names there is important. What we also do need to make sure is that if we have a specific name for a course, and it doesn't necessarily, like, we need to make sure that the name is at least there, even if the number, like if it's, we don't have
Yes,
to have all
okay,
the numbers, but like,
right.
if we call our
Identifying
English 9
details.
course,
Yeah.
like, you know, whatever it happens to be, you know, like the responding to literature, for instance, should be there as a course name that meets this requirement, but you don't necessarily need all of the course numbers after it.
Yeah, going back to Andy's earlier point, though, that's going to make an awfully complicated entry when I try to account for SWS English, which kids start taking in the sophomore year, because they're inventing courses, they're changing
Right.
names all the time, and kids can be taking any number of courses. So we'll figure out a way to do it, but it's going to make it, you know, some encompassing category.
Yeah, so how the one other paragraph that a bunch of these districts, I'm looking in Mashpee, one of my favorites. I have a connection there. So credit recovery options, meaning students who don't meet the required passing grade at that in those courses, do we give them an option to take a path through summer school, a credit recovery course, or additional coursework by their counselor that meets the same standards? Is there any comment that we want to add in our policy about that? So if you didn't meet the competency requirement, you get other opportunities to meet it for graduation?
I'll talk.
Yeah, I was going to say that might be, I mean, that we might, but we can also cover that under some of the other ways in the paragraph below. But I do want to just point out in the guidance that we are given by DESE, again, the policy requirements say the coursework requirements in each subject of the required subject areas, including the specific courses and the district considers applicable for the purposes of CD. So we do need to name the specific courses that we think are applicable.
It's interesting only because the policy, you know, maybe what some of these the online policy sections, ITFE, and bunches of these districts, maybe they have two versions, Robin, you know, a simpler version for the policy and a detailed version that they gave back to DESE, per what Bella said.
They may only offer English 9 as their English 9th grade English course, but it could be offered for multiple levels, but it's English 9, right?
Okay. Yep.
So.
Okay. My question was about the other, you know, credit recovery.
Yeah.
Right.
If we're going to be explicit about that.
Well, and also, you know, we'll do this and the best that we can. If we have to come back and revise it, we will do that. But so, because it's something new. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Jesse, there are some avenues for credit recovery for students in summer school. Depends on number of absences, depends on grade. So there are some avenues to do that, or kids can take classes over again the following year.
No, I agree. I'm just saying it's not explicit in the policy that you showed us.
Yes.
Maybe that's all. Maybe there's this.
And maybe it's part of the student must earn full credit for the English, like I'm just looking at English language arts courses listed above, or by completing a subject matter portfolio aligned with the state frameworks and approved by the English department curriculum coordinator. And that's true of each of the areas, maybe like that. Maybe it's the review of, you know, outside coursework meant to, or summer school coursework or whatever it is, but like maybe it's that it's really encompassed by that. You complete these courses successfully, or there's this other space, and that's really for that alternative.
Okay.
Mariah?
Which classes aren't included? What have you decided does not meet your competency determination in these grades? Have you listed everything for sophomore and freshman year? Like, are there classes that you're like, nope, this one would not meet our competency. We offer this, but it doesn't meet a determination of competency.
I don't think there really is any course that wouldn't meet the, you know, all of the courses and all of the programs be they ACE or SWS or special ed, would be aligned with the frameworks and therefore would qualify.
Okay, I wonder if there's space to make that kind of statement in addition to complying, but essentially like, yes, if you take a class here, it's good enough to meet the state requirements.
I wonder, what do you think about language that says that the classes that are designated in the curriculum, I mean, sorry, your course of study, because your titles might change from time to time, and you might add another course or just change a course title.
This is the point of not being too
Yeah.
prescriptive in the wording, and it is a good point. It
Maybe you
gives you the
should just
flexibility.
refer
I mean,
to
what
the course of
happens if
study.
someone takes a pilot class? I'm making this up, but next year there's an innovation fund class in
Right.
blah, blah, blah. If it's not here, are we going to say, well, they didn't actually meet the criteria, the competency? I doubt that's what you intend, but that would
And
be a consequence.
I think it could be restated in the course of study, you know, these classes count toward the competency determination, because each year the school committee has to approve that course of study anyway. Should we do that? I can see like you might, so honestly, the DESE is looking at competency determination again. I think that led us to think, oh, they're going to change the requirements in another year, but maybe they won't. Maybe we'll have this for a while. So maybe we should refer to the course of study.
So Bella, are you suggesting, for example, putting maybe an icon on each of the courses within the course of study that qualifies within the course catalog for each
Yeah,
course that
something,
qualifies?
you know, in a footnote somewhere. And again, school committee has to approve that course of study every year anyway. And I'm just saying that so that the members on this meet will understand that they'll get to approve the ones that count.
Okay.
It's a lot easier to amend your course of study than to amend a school committee policy.
Right, that was my point earlier, if we simplify it.
Andy.
Yeah, so before we leave this, can we get clear on where this is supposed to sit in the policy manual or how to integrate it? Because currently what we have is section I-1F, high school graduation requirements, right, which are more all-encompassing than this. And then currently we have a section I-1G, which is basically a protest against the use of MCAS as a graduation requirement. So we can happily get rid of that section. And it might be natural to replace it with what's in front of us or some version of it, and I would add like one sentence to the beginning of the high school graduation requirements policy, just saying in order to graduate from BHS, students must satisfy the following graduation requirements. And that's what we have currently. And then we can just say in addition to the competency determination requirements in section I-1G, right? So just a pointer to the next section. And then we could incorporate this into the policy manual as the next section. And then maybe with Bella's suggestion that instead of listing the courses directly here, we just provide a pointer to courses of study.
Andy, I believe this one is IKFE.
Yes, that's right. That's what I mentioned earlier. It comes after IKF, graduation requirements, Sandy. I don't see an I-1 and online for the other.
Sorry, I'm looking at our policy manual,
right? I understand.
Not an MASC one.
Right. So I'm saying in section I, which is instruction, right?
Yeah.
There is you know, 35 or 40 in the Newton one, and the Newton IKFE is competency determination standing on its own. Sort of comes right after IKF, which is graduation requirements.
Yeah, I mean, wherever I mean, so if we were to do the same, it would be section I-1G, I guess, in our handbook, just to have it immediately after graduation requirements.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. So does that seem reasonable to all, that that's where it would sit, and that we would streamline it by removing the direct references to individual courses here?
Okay.
My only question, and Bella, maybe this is a question that you and I can find out, because the guidance does ask us to specifically name courses. whether that's, like whether we need to do anything regarding like whether a statement about the courses designated in our course of study will be sufficient.
I would think that maybe we submit it and then we attach the course of study.
Okay, so Andy, so we're going to present this to the school committee in early December, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose so. So I guess we'll have to discuss with the chair, but I'm hoping it can be docketed. I don't think it needs to go through subcommittee again.
No, I don't think so. No. Okay. So I am going to, you're going to continue, right, with policy, Andy?
Yes.
And the curriculum folks and Hal and Anthony, thank you. Robin, I guess. We get to go and enjoy our evening. So thank you everyone for your input. I appreciate that. And curriculum is officially over, but policy is going to continue. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
Are we
Take
on
care.
the same
Thank you,
link?
everyone.
Bye, everyone. We're on the same link, right? We're not going
I
anywhere.
think
we
so.
still
Same
here.
link. Yes, same
Okay.
link. Yep.
I just wasn't sure because there was a link in the other calendar invite.
Yep.
I was confused.
Yeah,
Thank
which
you.
actually didn't work. It led to the agenda and not to a Zoom
Right.
meeting. But
Betsy
Yes.
and Andy. I would be interested in leaving this on just to listen. Do you want to do you want to like perma mute me or something, Betsy? Or I won't say anything.
I mean, maybe I'll just
But I may as
make
well
you,
keep it on and listen because I'm going to start dinner.
okay, maybe I will remove your co-host permissions
Okay.
if you don't mind, okay?
I don't mind. Thank
All
you.
right.
okay, so welcome now to the rest of the November 18th, 2025 meeting of the Policy Subcommittee. Give me a second here to get my papers in order and get the competency determination stuff out of the way. Okay, so our first item is approval of minutes from the October 21st subcommittee meeting. I'll move those. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. Mariah, how do you vote?
I'm going to abstain since I forgot to read them.
It's because what?
I forgot to read them.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Jesse?
I read them. They're fine. Good job. Thanks.
Yes, so they're actually outstanding. So
Yeah.
yeah. And I vote yes as well. Thanks, Betsy.
Thank you, Betsy.
Okay, so our first item is the draft building usage and access policy review, discussion, and possible vote. So Jesse, do you mind describing to us sort of the additional work that you've done since the last meeting and how the draft that you just sent around relates to the draft that we discussed a month ago?
Yes. So in light of the discussion we had at the last meeting and the questions that came up regarding why I made sort of structural, not even structural changes, but actually a recasting the policy, while I was waiting for feedback, I think that we were going to get from Joe Albuquerque, which still hasn't happened. But I did see him a few days back, and we're going to meet. So in any case, in the absence of that, I thought it might be more prudent, after what I saw Mariah had done with the flag policy, to simply go back to the building usage and access policy and apply the lessons I had learned from our discussion in our last policy meeting to the existing building usage and access policy. So
Would you like me to share anything, Jesse?
yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking for it, but I'm still like in the middle of competency over here. I guess I'm incompetent at moving so quickly from one to the other, but sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. So this is, thank you, Betsy.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So this is from section K, and what I did is made the changes about a week ago only relevant to titling, and a few based on conversations I had with people in advance that were part of the other one, but very, very few. And again, following the theme that I heard from both Mariah and Andy in the last meeting, was not to come up with brand new ideas and not to overload this with procedure, because that's really up to the Office of Administration and Finance to do. So anywhere it said, Deputy Superintendent, I fixed it to Office of Administration and Finance, so it became DSAF. There were places where it said principals, sometimes it said building leaders. So it's all building leaders. Then it continues, okay, and then down here, this red section has to do with some, again, without a discussion yet with Joe, some couple of highlights of what the guidelines would be from OAF about after school or enrichment programs using the building. First being that they need access to school buildings and spaces, so the directors should really have access to the keys that'll open the doors used for the program. And talking to some of the programs, they're often calling a janitor who might have a maintenance person who might be there in order to get a key. They might not have it for one of their rooms. And generally what you want to do to maximize time that they're using and the program while the students are there is not have a room locked, unable to get in. So whether it means key cards for staff that are involved in the after school programs, or whether it just means having keys to the rooms that they're renting, or for another kind of program that needs to get in, we want to maximize their ability to get into the space that they're renting. The second one is which I think holds true for most, B is that employees of after school programs, again, this could become part of the protocol or steps that Susan and Joe could come up with, but I didn't want these ideas to disappear. Tell them sort of what we're thinking about, that if employees have passed the employee guidelines like Corey checks and these other things, they could be provided with swiping cards so they can get into the buildings. They shouldn't be knocking on doors if something locked and then unable to get in, or pulling people away, other staff in the after school program in order to get in. And then the third one, which I heard from different programs, Mariah may have heard it as well, is that often at some of the buildings, there are visitors coming to the building, could be a parent, could be a kid who's not in after school but forgot their backpack, whatever. They're knocking on the door to get in. And this is something the after school programs, for example, should not be having to manage. So while the programs are running, their staff need to stay with their students. And so OAF should develop, if there isn't one already, a guideline for how they'll make sure that the key entrances are monitored in some ways, so that the programs that are paying for the space and are running their program don't have to be diverted to visitors at the door. Then Section 71, yeah. So going down to Section 7 there, Betsy, at the bottom. This is not meant, Andy, to be included. I just referenced it because Chapter 71, Section 71, where it talks about what the school committee is supposed to do to review fee schedules and guidelines. At least, I mean, it's possible it happened last year. I don't really recall. Maybe I just don't remember, which is possible. But I thought it would be useful. I mean, I read this Section 71 like 3 times here now, and I put it in here just so that we are familiar with what's in there, and without interference. It says, fourth, fifth line, and consistently without interference with the use of the premises for school purposes, allow the use thereof by individuals and associations for educational, recreational, civic, philanthropic, other purposes as the school committee deems for the interest of the community. And it's just helpful to have that in case someone, hasn't read what that means, because it's only, a footnote. Maybe it should be a footnote in the policy. It's what our team thinks. So, and we probably don't need a little piece at the end that says this section shall not apply to Boston, but that is in the state law. And then on the requirements, I took out all the stuff about how fees might be set. It's all related to what Joe and the team would come up with. Violations, result in consequences. And then the rest is really the very tiny changes. It said select men, so change it to select board and things like those lines. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there are a couple of minor changes, as you'll see in the tracking that I made, that are, these are under special circumstances. But it really updates the policy to sort of our current terminology, provides a little bit, okay, now number 2 coming up now is, use of the school building by district partners, town partners, and independent partners. This is the second section of the policy. And after school and out of school programs. So again, the school committee encourages the coordination to provide the opportunity. It should be the school committee's agreements with these agencies, departments, or organizations, and then it defines what they are. This is again straight out of our policy manual. Yep, continuing down. And then this relates to what we said earlier about that they need to provide certification of background checks on their staff. I suppose that's something again that has to be done between the after school or the after school out of school program and OAF when they're making their application, and then certification. Yeah, this is all
Was
again.
Joe okay with that?
I haven't heard back from him. We're going to meet.
Oh, you haven't heard back. Oh, I thought I missed that I heard you'd reached out to him. I didn't catch that
He actually walked in to a meeting on Friday. I was having another marathon meeting with food services. And
I see.
I didn't realize he actually sits out at the Baldwin, Mariah.
Yes,
And so
right.
he said, I heard this voice and I looked, you matched that picture on the website. Are you Jesse? So I say, because we hadn't met. So I said, yeah. He says, oh my gosh, we got to meet and I have answers and I'll get back to you. So
Okay.
I need to give him a call. But I
Bella?
don't think
Sorry.
he's gotten this copy of this policy. So, that's to answer your question.
Bella's hand is up.
So I had the original policy and I haven't been able to run it by the building principals, and I didn't know, and I did send it to Susan to let Joe know, so she must have passed it on to him, but I haven't talked to Joe personally about the policy. And I looked and I didn't realize another version had been posted, so I will check with Betsy why I couldn't find this later version, but I haven't run it by the principals yet. I do have some concerns about security of school property and shared spaces, so I'll have to look more closely at it, but I'll look at this updated version, Jesse.
Okay.
I guess I had other question. Is this updating a current policy or is it a new policy that's being drafted?
This is updating the current policy to essentially ensure that all terminology is up to date.
Sure.
And to provide the basis under which Joe Albuquerque and team will share with us, I don't want to say more transparently, just will share with us the processes and procedures that are being used for entities that want to utilize our buildings after hours.
Sure. And all right, so it was my fault because I had questions about it, and so I haven't run it by the principals yet.
Okay.
And then we will. Okay. And then
Yeah,
I'll
this is
Before
right.
you
Yeah.
do, Bella, can I make comments? Because a lot of this actually is not consistent with other things we have. So I think it might need a little more work. It's not your fault, Jesse. It's just that you didn't know, like you did a whole bunch of cleanup, but there's some other areas too that need some more cleanup. And I'll just give a couple of examples. The wording, if we scroll up a smidge, like the definitions term here, I don't think that this matches what we used, Betsy, in the other documents that we've prepared for building fees. And also this doesn't reflect some of the discussions we've been having with the town and specifically rec about the MOU regarding rec's use of space and some of the separate documents there. My general concern with this document is, and if you could scroll down a little bit, Betsy, and again, this is existing language from before, Jesse.
Yes.
Personally, I would feel more comfortable with, I'll just give one example. Like there's a lot of here, I'm channeling Andy, or at least what the lesson that I took away from what Andy said about policy, which is that as we were doing some policy last year, which is like, we need to be less prescriptive in the specifics and we need to direct the superintendent and the team to develop the specifics. So like, unless we truly want to have financial statements and demographic data by October 31st every year, then we don't need to write that in there. We say that they need to create their own processes to decide that. So I think that there's some other things in here which are a little bit too specific in my opinion, and or don't comport with current practice.
I agree with
So
you.
I think, yeah, so I think there's a little bit more to do before it
In
goes to
fact,
the principals, because my worry is that the principals, if they read some of this, might think that this is the goal of the school committee as opposed to a true document for discussion. And I don't think that we necessarily want to do some of these things. We might want to back away from them. So it might be worth, again, like having one more draft at least before the principals were asked to weigh in on this.
I'm happy to, if the problem, okay, two comments. One is, you note in section B, Roman numeral 2, Mariah, that I actually put in after,
Yeah.
demographic data. I don't think legally you can require the programs to do so, so they won't. If it's, if it's something that's not even legal to ask for. So that's like, it's like hiding in the background of the policy that no one's reading. So that's why it's sort of living over
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the second thing was, I'd be more than happy, thrilled, if you and I could go through this together in a separate meeting, but if it's discussion and then it's sort of OMO breaking because there's only 3 of us. So if you want to take it on your own, look at it, send it back, or have it reviewed on the next meeting. If there's some way we can do it without breaking open meeting law, sure. I mean, there might be some information you have about other, parallel efforts that will update this policy to make it even more modern than what I tried to do, but that's because you have more information. So,
Yeah.
I'm happy to sit with you and do it, or remote and do
Yeah.
it.
Right.
If we can do that without OML issues, or have you do it alone and then bring it back, because it'll just cycle around then, because I'm going to do based on what I know, and then there's information that you have that's.
Yeah. Andy, does it make sense for me to take the next crack at it?
Yeah, the
Given
question
the
would be,
OML stuff?
would it be best for Mariah to take a crack at it and then for Bella to check with Joe and building leaders, or other way
I think
around?
so. I
Yeah, I
think
think
it
so.
probably is better to make sure, because the way it is now doesn't even comport with current practice. I would
Mhm.
rather flag what current practice is and, at minimum.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
And that
guess
way, I
in the
just don't
interest
want
of
people to
it,
worry or start to spin about stuff which we don't want them to worry or think too
Right.
much
That's
about.
true. That's true. That's why we haven't, so it's sort of good that it hadn't been sent out to building leaders yet.
so for efficiency, Jesse, if it's okay with you, I would suggest that Mariah have a crack at it, and then it doesn't need to come back to subcommittee before Bella checks in with staff. Would that be all right?
Yeah, and where do you want Joe to be integrated with it then?
I would
Bella's
include
handling
Joe.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would include Joe.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so if you're
Will
willing to
you
take that
send
on,
me
Mariah.
yeah, I don't mind. Will you send me the doc version as opposed to, I think we only got the PDF version, right, Jesse, or did we get the doc version?
I think I sent no, this is a
I
this is not
PDF'd it to upload, but I do have the Word version.
Oh, I sent her the original Word document.
Yep, so I'll share that with you, Mariah, afterwards.
Then
Thank
you can
you.
do tracking and all. You can just
I
continue.
think, yeah, I was just looking, but now I don't see it. Since you have,
I can share. I might have shared it with you in just docs, but if not, if I might have done it in Word in any
you
case.
just wrote, I sent Betsy the new draft. I didn't get it. We didn't get it directly. So yeah, if you don't mind sharing it, Betsy, I'd appreciate it. Thank
Best
you.
for sure.
Okay. Overall, I mean, I like the direction this is taking, where I think if I understand right, we're focusing now on just getting greater clarity on sort of what our obligations are to people who
Right.
use our spaces and what their obligations are to us in terms of, whatever they do and also what information they provide. So
Right now, I think, the issue I think we have, in my opinion, is that, at least as far as I know, it's pretty hard if you're a user to understand what your rights and what your responsibilities are if you're a user of the building. I'm not sure where Joe is at in terms of updating the contracts, but like if you go to Newton's website, just because I happen to be looking at similar questions this week, unrelated to this policy, it was pretty handy, like all of the ability to reserve or to request a reservation of space is all on the website, and it's like a little bit more forward facing. And again, this is not like a blame statement at all, because Joe is relatively new in the position and has been getting his arms around many things. But I think that to the extent our policy can say things like that should be set up and then leave it to staff to work out the details, or, you know, I liked the statement you put in here of like building, like people who rent the building need to have, and whether it's whatever the appropriate, whether it's a swipe card or a key or whatever it is, but like PSB needs to provide that. To me, that's the kind of thing where we just need to give the direction and then walk away on the
Right.
details, because
Exactly.
we're not in the place to manage the details.
The other one that could be problematic, which is again on OAF side, not on us, is the fee structure. For example, is it by room by hour? Is it by facility?
It is on us. That's a school committee vote that was already done a couple of years ago, refreshed a couple of years ago, but school committee sets fees, and staff had a structure, and some of them were modified and some of them haven't been. And Joe, when he came in, asked to have a year to really understand how things were working before he made recommendations. We're at the beginning of the second year. So this is a very timely conversation,
Yes.
but it also gives us the chance to step the policy back away from the details that it's saying too
Right.
much, at the same
Right.
time as it affirms that staff need to develop the right SOPs and guidelines and such. So
Right,
it's,
another one has to do more perfect in that is the timing of the contract renewals. For example, let's say you have a program that wants to start and advertise to people, wants to start, I don't know, October 15th, and your contract comes out in December. Like the timing's not right for that because I don't know what their costs are going to be. So hearing, again, not from us, but again, from OAF, having a very clear protocol for contracts for after-school programs, you know, we'll make sure that it's like, I don't know, 1 month before your program starts or whatever it is. That's all on OAF side to be more transparent about that so that everyone knows what's going on. So I agree with you 100%. Should not be in the
Yeah.
policy, but we want to read what the process is, and that's for them to do. Thanks.
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse, for that, and Mariah for taking this forward. Okay, our next item is a draft instructional materials policy. Yeah, Jesse,
Do
do
we
you want to
have
update
that?
us on that? No, no, I haven't seen
Oh.
anything, so yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if I missed it.
Instructional materials, I don't believe that was in my list for this meeting, was it?
Okay. I think it was part of the overall plan, but that's fine. We can defer it.
I'm saying I don't think it was even, I don't remember being assigned it unless, unless this was related to
I
the.
thought you had talked about it, Jesse, when we were having our planning meeting, and you flagged it because it was part of the resolution.
Well, we did, yeah, well,
had...
I would have been, I'm saying I would have been happy to work on it, except that when we gave out what was going to be done for each meeting, I don't recall that this was on that list of things.
Okay.
Definitely,
We'll
I can definitely, okay, I'll write it down now so that I'll make it happen. That's all for next video. Okay, instructional materials policy. Yeah, okay, I got it. I'm sorry if I misunderstood.
No worries. So we had also originally been planning to discuss the civil rights policy. I was supposed to bring a draft, but I pulled that from the agenda because we had the competency determination, so I didn't think we'd have enough time. So
Okay.
that leaves us actually quite a bit of time for new business. So, you know, we're not supposed to be discussing in a real substantive way these items, but I did list 2 items that based on communications I received, I reasonably expected would come up. I think that we're obliged to do that if like we can predict that something will be raised. And so those 2 items are possible revisions to the personal electronic device policy that we passed last year, and a potential policy on acceptable use of AI. And again, we're not supposed to be discussing these substantively, more just exploring whether this is something we'd even like to bring up at a later meeting. So Jesse, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I'll just say that I took a stab at this is at the high school level, because last year in our policy, again, this is open information, everyone knows this, that our elementary school one is often away. It does it on an enforcement side. What some parents tell me is that kids that bring smartwatches to school that are not just smart because they're digital and do like track your steps, but actually connect to the network. There's maybe an enforcement gap there, even in K-8, that we have to figure that out. But on the BHS side, I think we've heard it at school committee also that in public comment that there's a concern about having kids, even in passing time or in lunch, having personal electronic devices available to them that are not school in the classroom kinds of devices. So I did take a stab and sent it into Betsy a couple days ago. That works to simplify what we passed last year and provides a very brief set of guidelines on like violations. In other words, what are the consequences as you step through having it happen to once, twice, third times. So I'm not sure if I'd suggest that maybe we could share that with Anthony and Hal and see what they think, and maybe then docket it for an upcoming policy meeting. It's not, I mean, controversial maybe, but I'm saying it's not complicated in terms of what the wording needs to be, because we'd like to essentially, we're getting ahead of where the Attorney General's office is, which when I heard Andrea Campbell talk at a meeting a few months back, and this is something that's in the center of their target is often away all day. So it just hasn't worked its way through all the legislature yet. So, it could be the school districts are just like we did a year ago, are sort of jumping to try to get their arms around this earlier. I think Bella has her hand up.
Yeah, Bella.
Thank you. Whoops. Oh, when I would appreciate if actually I'm aware of policy discussions, and I totally agree. We would seek the input of the building leaders, especially age-appropriate building leaders. But I would prefer it come through me, and then I delegate, just so I know, so I don't miss things.
Sure.
Actually, it's just so I don't miss anything. Like I know it's happening.
Perfect.
So anyway, just
So
that.
so I sent the PED one to Betsy. I'm happy to either have her forward it to you, or I can send it to you, whichever you'd like.
Sure. Or Betsy, I don't know, however Betsy wants to manage it, because she'll know what I need to see.
Okay.
Yeah. And probably Betsy needs to know where the copies went, so she knows who got what.
Oh, no, it hasn't been sent out to anyone else.
Okay.
Just our policy subcommittee.
Yeah. So I think go through Betsy, because then Betsy will know who got what organizationally.
Yeah, this is very early. It hasn't been wasn't meant for any outside discussion external to this subcommittee.
Right. I mean, the question is even whether there's sufficient interest in taking this up to the point where we would ask the superintendent to check in with staff about it. I think we're at that earliest stage, in my view.
Okay.
So that's what this discussion would be about.
So I would defer to you on that, and then when you're ready for it to come to the school administration to look at, then I can take it from there. And it wouldn't be to stand in the way for the review by all appropriate staff. It's just so I know, just so I know what's happening. All right, thank you.
That's great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I guess that's the question. Is there sufficient interest in taking this forward? So Jesse, I assume that you having drafted something means that you are interested in having the school committee work on this. Mariah, what do you think?
So remind me, how does this compare though with the legislation that was, like, why are we doing this if the legislation?
Well, the legislation hasn't been passed yet. It is the legislation, if passed and approved by the Attorney General's office, would be off and away all day. So we essentially are not there yet. K-8 is off and away all day. The high school allowed students to use their phones during passing time, bathroom breaks, and I guess in the cafeteria. So it's sort of it's sort of like an intermediate thing, right? It's not all the way yet. And when the law finally is passed and the AG office, let's say, is what they said they're going to pass it, then it will supersede our policy. So
my feeling is, unless Bella hears from the building leaders that they think that our policy needs to be updated at this point, I wouldn't move on it.
Okay.
Does that answer the question? I mean, that was a new policy, so and there's legislation pending, so I don't feel a huge amount of.
Well, the thing is that there wasn't the reason that our policy last year, Mariah, was put in the first place was because the building leaders came up, if I recall, Andy, help me here, I'm pretty sure the building leaders the summer before, when they met with us, and we brought the building leaders in to meet with us on their highest level priorities, they in unison almost all said, we got to deal with these cell phones. So
Great, but then they dealt with it. So that's why I don't understand what
they
we're
worked
doing.
over the summer to come up with a bunch of different policy versions, and then it ended up in the school committee to look at a formalized policy that after the building leaders looked at what policy subcommittee came up with, they all agreed. I mean, it went to Linus and the thing,
Yeah, right. I guess my point is there
So
was
now-
all this
so-
process very recently.
right, well, a year ago. So now, so
Yeah.
the thing was the early one, if I recall, I could go back way back, said that even at the high school level, it's off and away all day. And the BHS came back saying that after it was reviewed on the school side, they said, well, we're gonna, our intermediate position is passing time, lunchtime, bathroom time. They can pull it off the little holder on the way into the classroom and use it. And so that was sort of a compromise. We agreed as a school committee. We voted to go with the current PED policy that allows this a bit of use during the day for 9 to 12. Now,
what's the problem we're trying to fix, though? I'm still like, what is the problem?
The problem is to extend the off and away that is currently in K to 8 all the way up to 12. Just getting
the high school asked for that?
Well, you mean administration? No.
Correct.
I don't believe so. So
well, Bella has her hand up, so I want to did the high school ask for that, Bella?
So I think I feel that Jesse's is trying to be responsive to what he heard at public comment. And so public comment there, so obviously a staff member expressed their opinion about it. I couldn't tell you if that represents where the high school wants to go, administration and or staff. So that could be something I could bring up to them. And so I can do that and see. I don't know what the answer is to that. But I do think it probably is worth a check-in. And respectfully, people who come to public comment are expressing their voice as they should, but it doesn't necessarily represent the body. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but I don't know the answer to that. So I can do a check-in with them. I'm happy to.
Right. I mean, I think Bob made a comment, I think last week, if something around the lines of that, the social interactions that accrue from not having this device in the way has been shown through the research and through studies as being dramatic if they don't have these, if kids aren't, besieged with these devices, and the issues about bullying and harassment, it goes on and on. So we know it's a problem, I guess, in a sense. Yeah, I mean, if you can take it to your leadership and the schools and float the idea and see if they think, yeah, well, it's sort of like we're waiting for it to happen. Once it happens at the state level, it's going to be taken out of our hands. So to be ahead of the curve a little bit and to say the K-8 building leaders agreed we don't want them at all during the day, and the high school went part way. So let's see what they think, and then we can always circle back. I agree with you, Bill.
Yes, happy to check in with them, and I appreciate that you're interested in it, and all your interest in it. But let me check in with them.
And I just want to say,
just please make it clear that it's not that the school committee is going to do a policy and we want their input. It's we're at the stage where we're checking to see whether they feel there's a problem that needs solving here.
Okay.
And just to add, I heard Bob and I heard the public commenter, and there's a whole bunch of different feelings and student needs that we can't presume. And I just want, if we're going to have this conversation, it needs to be an actual conversation. And I don't presume that the state legislation is going to pass either. There's a lot more to this, and acting in haste and swinging wildly from one extreme to the other, to me, is not appealing. So to make a change so quickly after the first change, it would truly have to be because there is an actual problem here.
Yeah, sure.
In my opinion. Again, just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the goal of this discussion has been fulfilled in my view. So, um, okay, so the other item that I reasonably expected would come up was a potential policy on acceptable use of AI, and we've already heard from the superintendent on that subject at a school committee meeting, and you know that is reinforced by actually MASC guidance around this subject, like in their policy newsletter. You know, they're not providing any kind of a draft on AI. And in fact, they're saying if a district wants to develop any policy in this area, like we advise taking the approach of crafting an overall statement of intent and deferring specifics to the appropriate administrators. The overall idea here is that the field is in flux and it touches on so many aspects of how we do schools that it's really not for a school committee to weigh in at this point. But I know that there's been a lot of public interest in this. So we're hearing quite a bit, and so I wanted to check in with the subcommittee.
Just so
How
I
you
have
think?
clarity, have any of the schools, was it a detail to this? The high school administrators were, I thought someone told us somewhere that the high school administrators were working on some sort of AI guidelines.
Actually,
Or was that you, Bella?
yes.
Sorry.
So Scott was working with, and actually
Scott Moore? Or
yeah,
which Scott? Okay.
yeah, Scott, yes. And also other high school administrators and other high school staff have been working on it, and they've been doing PD over the summer. And actually there's a conference this week that I'm going, other principals are going. It's something that we're deeply interested about. But I don't know that we're ready at all to say what that policy should be. I have been personally tapping into other colleagues that are working on this. So I would say we're all looking at it. If a model policy pops up, we'll definitely grab it and look at it. I think people agree it's just not something we cannot think about. And I think it's fair to say that we'll probably integrate some use. It's just the guidance is tricky. Like, you know how to do that. Curiously, I think about a year ago, I looked to see what MASC and DESE said, and they both said there's going to be guidance coming out, and then they both backed off. So I know that changed, and it's an indication of how developing a guidance will be tricky.
So I sent you last week, Bella, the guidance on teaching. And I just want to say, I wanted to just share quickly if I can. So Northeastern has an actual policy around use of AI overall, and it breaks it into several different areas. I'll just scroll down, but there's standards for AI in administrative work, for research, and then for generative AI in teaching. And the reason that I bring this up is because often we think about the issues around teaching, but there really are these other things, right? Like, how are we going to use AI in, some of our operational things and other things that are happening? And it also has you think about the systems about using attribution, about checking for accuracy, about ensuring that you're not including confidential information in them. So again, this might be a resource as you're thinking about what a policy could be versus the guidelines and some of the overarching things about data safety, attribution, and sort of quality, like fact checking and ensuring the quality of product. So I'd be happy to share that too, if that would be interesting, just as a comparison, because the guidelines are not in the policy. The guidelines are much more active and evolving, reflecting but the policy is really about these overarching issues that we really need to be continuing to be aware of, and how we don't just start throwing in a system without having it being validated for these confidentiality, safety, and quality and accuracy aspects.
So the dilemma is there might be very sound guidelines already out there, but then how do you support the staff to be able to implement those guidelines? So you see, so that's the dilemma. So because that's another level of training. And I'm going to say people have different capacity to adapt to new technologies faster or slower than others. And so I'm going to say that's the dilemma. So how
And
to,
I don't, well, so
yeah.
I'll say that at Northeastern, again, I'm just using it because I think it's actually gone pretty well at work. But what I will say is Northeastern is sort of a institutionally an early adopter. And there's a lot of people who are not interested in adopting. And so I think that and actually are like ethically opposed to the adoption for myriad reasons, right? So how you make space appropriately for that, I think is really valuable.
So there you go. So
Yeah.
yes, so there may be guidelines that sound reasonable, and there you're going to have a difference of opinion, but also difference in capacity to be like to have a guidance. Can you implement it? So we will figure out. The thing is, we do have to figure it out because it is here. So, and
I think there's a value to model good adoption, healthy adoption, ethical adoption, responsible adoption for students, right? Because
yes, so they make
people.
good decisions about the use of it. And again, it runs into a capacity issue about how to do that. It does require some training. It's to ensure there's some thoughtful support about how to use it. So we are looking at it, and definitely looking at our neighboring districts, other districts, what they're going to do. So it's open right now. So I think I said at school committee for us to know what that policy should be. That's practical, that could be applied practically in our schools. I think is a little further away than now.
Okay, thanks. So I think as far as the school committee is concerned, I'm content to leave it there for now.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add in one more thing? Sorry.
We're still on new business, yeah.
Okay, just as related to this, that Northeastern also has a NSF funded program for it's to address the critical need to address AI competency in STEM educators in K-12. And I think there were some Brookline faculty who participated in this last summer. They've had the first summer of this, so there might be some opportunities too to do some peer sharing, at least among the STEM faculty. And if not, Bella, I'm sure that there would be an opportunity as well. If you're interested, I'd be happy to talk. This is something that's led out of my college. And if there's some interest in PD around this area, okay, so I'd be happy to connect you with the program leads on that. You're on mute. You're still on mute. Bella, you're on mute.
All right, thank you. I was aware there was definitely formal training done in the summer, but I don't know who they trained with. So maybe this was one thing that they did, but I thought there was there was a study group that
Yeah, there might have been, and I can check and see.
right. And there is also a conference at the Hines this Thursday. So actually some of the K-8 principals are going. I am going, and unfortunately, the group that was on the call earlier, they're in Philadelphia, so they can't go. So those of us sitting here, some of us are going that are in town on Thursday.
Is this the IMECE or something else?
Or
you don't know?
AIDX, maybe.
Okay.
All right.
Different one than I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah, it's at the
Cool.
Hines, so you probably
There's
could.
another one at the Hines at the same time that other people are going to, but that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Thanks.
right, is there any more new business before we quickly go over what we might take up at our next meeting? Okay, so for our next meeting, at the least, I think we should be looking at the civil rights policy that was originally supposed to be looked at today. And then Mariah, I believe you thought that the fiscal section might be ready to look at by December.
Okay, I'm so glad you mentioned this because we're talking about December 15th. What day are we talking about? December 15th, right?
When is the subcommittee meeting?
Remember, oh no, you weren't there, Betsy. Last night at expenditures and revenues.
It's currently December 9th, Mariah.
December 9th. Yes. Okay, so expenditures and revenues got moved to December 9th at 5.
Oh.
And that's the budget presentation. That was apparently the only time Bella could do, that the committee could do? I wasn't involved in the scheduling. That's when it got scheduled for, which overlaps with this meeting. So this meeting needs to move.
Yes.
Okay, and I have not had the chance to meet with Susan, so I would like to push finance if we could to January.
Say that again.
I haven't had the chance to meet with Susan, so I would like to push the finance section to January. January's policy,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, just remember that we undertake in the MOU to, to
report out
to
by
be able
March.
to
Report out.
publicize some updates or what we've done on the updates by March 1st, I believe it is. So we should be making some progress
We'll
before
totally
then.
make progress by then.
But which expenditure and revenues? Is schools
School subcommittee,
Okay,
because
okay,
that's when because the presentation to school committee on the budget is the 3rd, sort of with
No
the more
problem.
details, the next level down,
Alright.
and then it was gonna be the 8th, but Bella can't be there, so it'll be the 9th.
No problem. I just didn't have it
Yeah,
on my
just
calendar.
clarifying. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Thank you. Okay, no problem. Thanks. Okay.
Okay, so then we'll figure out when to hold the next meeting and also what to put in it, since fiscal is going to move out to January.
Well, I'll look at instructional materials. Okay, I mean I have that on my list.
Okay, Bella?
So this is the number that we were told to produce by 12/3, and so it's at 12/9. Okay, thank you.
So you're gonna present it to school committee on the 3rd, and I said to them, you need to watch the tape on the 3rd, and then you can ask questions on the 9th.
Got
So,
it.
yeah.
All right,
We meet on the 4th, not on the 3rd, though. Just
I'm sorry.
That's
the
okay.
4th.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
whatever it is.
The
Alright.
4th.
The 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you.
We don't have a
Okay.
finance meeting before that. That's fine.
Okay, thanks.
All right then. If that's all, then thank you everyone, and we'll work out the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.